Hello YouTube. In this video I'm going to be critiquing the new testosterone booster supplement by Derek from More Plates, More Dates. I want to make something crystal clear before I get into the thick of things. This isn't a review. I didn't buy the product, I didn't take the product. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to look at what it's supposed to do and the methods that were employed to push the product to offer to you something that I believe is going to be a rational review of the practice and therefore of the product if you so decide to buy it, because I do not need to try the product to tell you if it is a potential scam or not. And while I did listen to Derek's 2-hour-long video about the product, because it's the least I could do to prepare for this video, and while I also read all of the studies he referenced, plus all the studies that he didn't link because I wanted to have the maximum amount of information for this review, this isn't going to be a snooze fest where I'm going to explain to you all of the details of the supplement. We will get into that at some point because it's going to help my argument as well. But if you want to hear about the pill and what it's supposed to do for you, you can just listen to what Derek has to say. Here, it's going to be a pure critique, so we're not going to waste too much time on that. The science will be taken into account, but it's not going to be the main argument. I'm mostly going to be talking about marketing practices, psychology of purchasers, etc., etc. So what is going to happen in reality in this video is that I'm going to be discussing supplements as a whole, but I'm mainly going to focus on Derek's new supplement, Sigma, because it exemplifies the problems with muscle building supplements, and it also is a good excuse for me to actually present for you a case as to why even someone like Derek, who is trustworthy, who I do appreciate and who I think does a good job on this platform, is also someone that can do damage, because even if the product is sound and the method to actually develop the product is as well, it doesn't mean that it's going to be helpful to you. It might actually be very detrimental. So this is what this video is going to be about. You will see that I'm going to read more often than not because I have a full script in order so as to make sure I don't actually go off tracks, because this is a very structured argument. I also want to make clear that I do not think that Derek is actively trying to scam people. As I said, I have respect for the guy, but I do believe that his methods are questionable and therefore they should be observed. And since Derek himself has made videos debunking supplements by other influencers, he should see no problems with me doing that to him. So, the supplement is named Sigma. It's supposed to boost your testosterone levels, and it was created in association with Andrew Huberman, who is also a big name in the field of neuroscience. He's also someone who recommends supplements. He has a long list of supplements he believes are beneficial for human health, and he's someone who's extremely popular as well. So it's a match made in heaven. The two came together to create what is apparently the best testosterone boosting supplement on the market, something that Derek will tell you as well, because the reason why he came up with Sigma is because he rightfully understands that most test boosting supplements are useless, they do absolutely nothing, they're a scam, and so he actually put his own twist on it, and after some research, he has concocted something that he believes is efficacious. And that's something that Huberman believes as well, because they did it hand in hand. Derek states himself that he was inspired to make the supplement by Huberman and by some of the substances he discussed on the Joe Rogan podcast. Now, we're going to go beyond Derek and Huberman and look at the type of people that follow them, because it's extremely important for my argument. The vast majority of the demographic that watches these two men are men themselves, but they're not any type of men. They're usually young men. And they're young men that are going to be particularly attracted towards father figures, towards guidance, towards individuals that they can listen to and actually learn from. It's the same on this channel. I'm not blaming Derek for that. I have people on this channel that look up to me, they want to learn more about lifting and about life in general, and so they trust me. But it needs to be established, because this is something that if you don't look at it, you will not understand why the supplement is so easily pushed on these people, and why these people might not have the necessary ability to understand that they are going to be, in a sense, strong-armed into a purchase that is not going to benefit them. Because while I do absolutely believe that Derek and Huberman help millions of people, they also massively benefit from it. And you cannot take that out of the equation, right? Even if their intention is pure, even if they do again help others, it doesn't change the fact that they make bank from it, and therefore their integrity should absolutely be put to the question. We need to doubt their integrity because it's something that only fanboys would refuse to do. Someone benefits from a product, your first instinct should be to ask, hey, is there maybe a way that this person could maybe abuse their viewers or audience to make money if the product is not actually that great? I'm going to argue that today. The answer might be no. We might find out at the end that the product is great or that the methods used are actually just perfectly valid. And in that case, we'll just go home all happy with our free test boosters. But if it's not the case, we're going to learn something together. So now that we've observed the audience, let's look at the two men that are of interest today, starting with Derek. What you will notice with Derek, first and foremost, is that unlike a lot of influencers, he isn't slimy, meaning that he is someone who's very relatable. He is charismatic to an extent. He has allowed himself to be vulnerable in the past. And on top of that, he's also funny in his own way. And that means that he has an audience that is dedicated to him. When you watch More Plates, More Dates, you don't watch it just for the content. You watch it for Derek. If tomorrow the host was replaced and someone else than Derek was presenting the material, you would not watch it anymore. And that's perfectly normal. You have an attachment towards your favorite YouTubers. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It can become a bad thing if the parasocial takes over. That's a different discussion. I've already talked about that in the past. But that explains the trust. Some of you, a lot of you actually, who watch Derek, trust him blindly. You don't even question what he says. Why? Because you have put your faith in him. He has earned your respect enough that now he sort of has the keys to your house. He doesn't need to knock anymore. He has access to your brain, meaning that when he says something, it goes. That's very dangerous, and that's a problem because it is that trust in him that is going to lead you to make stupid purchases. Even if he himself is not trying to manipulate you, you might manipulate yourself because, again, you're too emotionally connected to the guy. Which means also, by the way, that Derek is not necessarily evil. He says himself that you do not have to buy his products. That is something I will give him 100% of the time. He always makes sure to include the fact that his products are not the only one available and that they're not necessary. But saying that is like pissing in a violin if you talk to a fanboy. So if you are a fanboy, what I want you to do is take out your brain, bleach it, remove all of the love that you have for Derek, and then put it back in your coconut and then listen to me. Because if you don't, you're just going to get upset for no reason. So that's necessary. I want you to keep in mind that even though Derek is very nice and he does help you and he does make you laugh, he also makes a mountain of cash off of his channel and the supplements. So he has a dog in the race. He has a certain benefit to gain from getting you to buy his supplements. So we have to question his integrity. And we're going to start right now by a myth that I hear a lot on this channel, where people say that Derek educates them. Like, oh, he makes all of these long videos about his supplements. It's so great. That way he teaches us about the compounds. Well, that's true. He does teach you. But that's not really the goal. I mean, I'm sure that he loves sharing it with people, but what it does in reality is that by educating you, he doesn't necessarily make you smarter. Rather, what he does is he bolsters your desire. If you have a product and you tell people, hey, buy it, that's not very effective. It works sometimes because some people are extremely susceptible to just straight up brute strength like this. But for the vast majority of the population, you need to be convinced. And you cannot be convinced by supplications. You cannot be asked, oh, please buy the product, because that is the worst way to sell something. Instead, what is going to happen is the person who pitches is going to try to get you to understand, without you realizing it, that the product is extremely good for you. So they're going to incept it. And the best way to do that is to tell the person about all of the benefits without even having to relate that to you. They'll just say and list all of the great things you're going to gain from the product, and that is going to convince you that you should buy it. It is the infomercial strategy. That's what infomercials do. If you watch an infomercial, what happens? No one tells you to buy, or at least not at the start. First, they present the product, they make you see how good it looks, then they explain all of the functions, and at the end they tell you that there's a sale, or that you need to buy it now because in 2 weeks it's going to be gone, etc. But they don't start with that. First, they make you desire the product, and then they make it available. When Derek explains his supplements, when he made his 2-hour-long video on the Sigma supplement, that's exactly what he does. And sure, it's informative, but it's also a sales pitch. So you have to keep that in mind. Because both Derek and Huberman have this image of honest, no-nonsense guys. And that might be true, but it's also the perfect cover to sell things to people. Because establishing trust with someone is the best way to sell them things without them thinking about it. I've already told you that. That doesn't mean that they're con men, by the way. It just means that their intents need to be questioned. So that's what we're going to be doing today. But because we're not in their heads and I cannot read Derek's mind, what we're going to have to do instead is we're going to use logic to infer potential motives and consequences from said motives, looking at their marketing practices and general ethos. So that was for our boy Derek from More Plates, More Dates. Now, let's look at his compadre, Andrew Huberman. I did some research on the guy. He has, again, a lot of credentials in the field of neuroscience. I do not doubt that. But there are a few things that sort of made me raise an ear because I have perused the internet and I've collected videos from the dude and I've seen some things that point to him believing in fields that are still to this day considered pseudoscience. For example, I've found articles and videos where Mr. Huberman spoke about what is known as the digit ratio, which is the belief that the size of your fingers, especially the comparison between the fingers, has a direct impact on your personality, your hormonal production, and your potential illnesses that you're going to be developing in the future. The issue is that, like I just said, this is bogus. It's a pseudoscience. Things like the ring finger theory that stipulates that your digit ratio has an impact on your personality type is nonsensical. And the idea that if this finger is shorter than this finger, you'll have high test is also nonsensical. It has never been proven by science. It relies entirely on anecdotal evidence and old wives' tales. But for some reason, this guy not only believes them, but he shares them on his podcast, in articles to millions of people. That is a red flag. A man of science should not indulge in such practices. And I'm not saying that these things are necessarily untrue. I'm saying that they've never been proven with facts, with empirical evidence. So that's already bad, because if we're going to start looking at the fingers of someone and infer personal characteristics from it, that's disclosed from phrenology. From the people who don't know what that is, phrenology is the idea that by touching someone's head, you can know about the way they behave. You can know if they're going to be a criminal, for example. This type of, again, science and this type of analyzing humans was used 300, 400 years ago, but it's been debunked a long time ago. Because, of course, the idea that if someone has a bump here, they're going to be a psychopath is completely stupid. Now apply this to fingers. It's just as dumb to try to get the same type of information from a digit ratio. The way your hand develops might have something to do with your brain development, but it has also a ton of other factors that can put some actual influence on the matter. So that's already something that I think we should look at, because it's very close to stuff like the Myers-Briggs personality types. I'm sure that you've heard of that. It's all over the internet. The inch memes, like the intelligent G or architect, all of these personality types, which in reality only constitute astrology for men. Meaning that these also have no basis in science. They have no basis in psychology at all. They are built exactly like an astrology chart would. Meaning that they are designed to make you feel better about yourself. Regardless of how you do on the test, the personality type that is going to be assigned to you is going to be full of positive personality traits, with a few negative ones put in the mix, which are always going to be still very positive, like, oh, you're a perfectionist or stuff like this. What is the goal? The goal is to make you espouse whatever diagnosis is being pushed on you. And it's the exact same thing with the digit ratio stuff. It rarely says something bad about you. It's always something that is going to make you feel better. But it should, again, look suspicious, because the way it applies to the population and the way the population desperately seeks it and tries to fit in those categories that are entirely made up again is a design. Okay, it's something that was created with that purpose in mind. In a sense, It appeals to people because most people, most men in particular, are so desperate to know where they stand in the social hierarchy that they listen to any type of authority figure, like Derek or Huberman, that are going to give them a clear-cut answer, especially if it's apparently related to biology and science, even if it sounds entirely stupid. Again, if I were to tell you that, oh, if your pinky finger is like a half of a quarter inch shorter than this finger, it means that you are going to be gifted in math. You would laugh in my face, I hope. But the second someone with a PhD says the same thing, now you believe them. Why? Authority. Right? It's an argument of authority. Someone who has credentials can say whatever they want, and anything that comes out of their mouth is going to be taken as gospel because you're going to believe them whatever happens. When you add Derek into the mix that you trust, it's hell, it's mayhem. Whatever they tell you about the supplements, you will immediately accept as truth. And that is a problem, especially again coming from someone like Huberman, because this guy has been on the Joe Rogan podcast and he has had long and lengthy discussions with Joe Rogan, and I have taken some snippets from it that make me extremely dubious about his actual intents, because he is the type that will tell you that once you start taking supplements, you will feel the benefits immediately. This is a direct quote from Andrew Huberman, and the issue is that that's not how supplements work. The vast majority of supplements take time to act, especially when we're talking about adaptogenic herbs that make up the vast majority of the Sigma supplement, which for the most part take months to actually show any results, and two, only work via accumulation. We're going to get back to it, but this is a key aspect of the critique that I'm going to be presenting today. So, my problem, again, with Huberman is that he is more of a motivational speaker than he is of an actual source of information. And again, I'm sure he's much more intelligent than me. He has more education in the field of neuroscience, everything that you want. He didn't become big and respected for no reason. But there is a certain type of almost hypnotization that comes with that type, again, of father figure, of authority figure, where they're just going to lull you with their words, and you're not going to be even listening to them anymore. You won't actually catch the sense of what is happening. This is someone who went on the Joe Rogan podcast and spoke to Rogan about testosterone optimization. Don't you see a problem with this? We're going to get back to it as well, but Joe Rogan is on PEDs. What use does he have of testosterone optimization? It makes absolutely no sense. There is no discussing optimizing hormonal profile with someone that pins test directly. It makes no sense, and yet it happened, and apparently no one saw any problems with that. Huberman himself didn't seem to see a problem with that. When you talk about, again, hormonal profile boosting with someone that boosts the hormonal profile using hard drugs, there should be, again, a siren going on somewhere that screams at you and makes you understand that there is something wrong here. But no such a siren actually went off, and that's what actually motivated me to make this video, because Huberman, at the end of the day, is a phenomenon. He is very hype, he is very bankable. That's the reason why you see him almost everywhere on YouTube. Channels use his name for clickbait, just the way I'm going to do it, I guess, because it actually gets clicks, it gets views. Joe Rogan did the exact same thing. Joe Rogan doesn't invite people because he thinks they're interesting or intelligent. For the most part, he invites people for three things actually. One, they're friends. Two, these people have worldviews that are going to align with his and justify his existence. Or three, their name is bankable. That's the main three reasons. There are other reasons, but for Huberman, that was mainly number 2 and 3. We're going to see that as well, but it's the same reason with Derek. I do not buy that Derek was charmed by Huberman's intellect and immediately believed that whatever product Huberman was pushing on Joe Rogan's podcast, because that's what he was doing, he was pushing supplements. I'm not buying that Derek fell in love with that. I think that Derek perfectly understands, because he's a very smart businessman, that if he associates with Huberman, he is going to make a ton of money, and he is absolutely correct. By associating with Huberman, he gains legitimacy. But it wasn't his goal in the first place. I think the goal was, again, just to sell more products. And it will sell. That Sigma nonsense, that Sigma supplement will sell. Why? Well, because Derek is a marketing genius. If you look at his channel, it blew up for a reason. It's because Derek knows how to play. Derek understands the rules of the game. He's someone who knows how to manipulate the algorithm, knows what topics are going to do well, knows what people to invite on his podcast. He also has the ability, and he's done it in the past, of just building people from the ground up and then using them to actually get views, which is, again, respectable. We cannot judge that, and I'm not judging that today, it's not the point. I just want to let you know that you're not dealing with someone who's just an innocent baby that just so happened to stumble like across a mad scientist and they teamed up together to make a supplement for you. That's not what happened. What happened is a businessman saw an opportunity to hire a scientist to combine our efforts together and make bank, and that's exactly what is happening. Derek's channel gets recommended to millions of Zoomers, so that's the potential user base and purchasers. You add to that Huberman with the credentials, and just like that, you have sales, because it is the alliance of science and top-level marketing, and that is going to win every single time. We're going to get back on the topic of Zoomers. I don't want you to think that I'm judging here. It's just a factual truth that Derek mostly has access to novices and people who don't know much about lifting. And this, by the way, explains the name. Right? Have you stopped for a second and actually looked at the name of the supplement? The supplement is named Sigma. It's clearly a meme, right? It's directly correlated with a meme that, by the way, has no basis in science. All of this Sigma, Beta, Alpha has nothing to do with any scientific rigorous evidence, and I'm not going to get into the discussion today, but even in the rank of social hierarchies, it's vastly misunderstood. You don't know what an alpha is. When you act alpha, in reality, you act like an asshole. Sigma doesn't exist. It's made up. It was supposed to be a joke, guys. I see many Zoomers nowadays who say that they're Sigma, but that means absolutely fucking nothing. You are a dumb fuck. That's what you are. You're not Sigma. And yet, Derek actually gave that name to the product. Why? Because he's a meme genius. He perfectly understands meme culture. He's right in the perfect age group where he has enough detachment from the memes to understand that you are idiots for following them like gospel, but he also gets how potent they are. And therefore, he knows how to play you, just like he plays the algorithm. He understood that if he gave that name to his supplement, he was going to attract your eye, and you would even maybe derive a weird sense of satisfaction from purchasing a product that is a Sigma pill because you think you're a Sigma male, so it aligns perfectly with you. You are delusional, but it serves Derek's interests, and that's the reason for the name. Now, using internet sensations to promote yourself is typical, and everyone does it on the internet. It's the reason why Huberman, again, is so omnipotent. He's everywhere. It's because his name has a lot of value. And so you mix that with the Sigma meme, and you have, again, the perfect mix of attracting Zoomers and then convincing them to buy the product with science. But that's a problem. Because the type of people that respond positively to the Sigma grindset meme fall into a younger demographic, as I already explained, of people who either don't earn their own money, so they're going to buy the supplement with mommy's credit card, or they don't have the best judgment. I would actually be very interested in like a database that collects the type of transactions from websites that sell supplements, and I would guarantee you that the vast majority of the time, the name of the card holder that was used for the purchase doesn't correlate with the name of the person who entered his address into the website, meaning that the vast majority of supplements are sold to people who don't make their own money. They use their parents' credit cards or their parents' money. I would actually bet my own money on that. That's not very interesting, it's just something that I wanted to say. But it points out again to the fact that these are people who don't have the best judgment and who don't have the ability, in a sense, to understand when they are potentially being scammed. You add that again with the fanboy syndrome, and you have a big problem on your hand because the product is Zoomer bait, 100%, and you cannot tell me otherwise with a name like this. And the issue is that it makes the product dubious. It's very good to make a 2-hour-long video reviewing the product and explaining why it's so efficient, but when your entire marketing strategy surrounding the product is based on the meme to attract teenagers, I have questions. Why do you feel the need, again, to rope them in like this? If the product could speak for itself and be efficient by itself, you wouldn't need that, and you also wouldn't need Huberman to sell that thing. So, the question I have for Derek and for anyone who is going to apply the same strategies is, what's next? Are you going to come up with a line of orange juice? You're going to call it Chad juice? Because that would also sell. It's still based on a meme, but it would also sell. There's a problem here, and that problem is the reason why I wanted to put the integrity of the two parties in question, because Derek is not a chemist. I understand that all of the jokes about Professor Dart and Dr. Dart, which I've made in the past, are very funny, but they are jokes. They are memes. It's all a big farce, guys. Derek is not someone who has a degree in chemistry. He's not someone who has a PhD in any type of advanced biochemistry or anything. He is someone who made a fitness channel, who has an interest in PEDs and supplements, and who shares. That's it. He's no authority figure. And I'm sorry to disappoint the people who didn't actually do homework, but Huberman is the same. Huberman is not a medical doctor. He is not a chemist. He never worked with supplement companies in the past, or at least not before he became big. So he also has no idea of what is going on underneath the surface. And sure, I'm certain that Derek knows a ton. I've been watching him for, I think, 6 years, a long time. I think at the start of his channel, I was already there. I discovered him on forums back in the day. He's always been someone who's very passionate. But what I'm seeing right now is a salesman. I'm not seeing the Derek of back then who had a passion. This is for money. And maybe it helps people, and maybe he's doing a good job, but I'm going to point to you to the mistakes that I saw in his entire development of the product. But that was, just to point out the fact that if you're going to retort to an argument of authority, it sort of falls on deaf ears, because it simply doesn't align. And I also want to say that Derek, taking drugs doesn't suddenly make him a genius. Just because you take PEDs doesn't mean that you now have the ability to produce something, a testosterone booster, that is going to be relevant. It doesn't work like that. And that points also to the following idea and the following argument, which is that the Sigma supplement is nothing special. Meaning that if you actually look at the ingredients, these have been used forever. There's not a single ingredient in the list that hasn't been used for at least 10 years. I'm going to list them at some point and talk about some of them, but it's nothing new, right? It's important to say that because a lot of you have sort of lost the plot. You listen to Derek and he uses all of these scientific terms that you understand nothing of, and he makes a huge list of things and you think, oh, it must be the greatest thing. No, it's not. It's just that by listing them all at once and insisting on using the scientific terms, he forces you into thinking that you're basically listening to someone talking about nuclear fission, but it's not the case. These are basic level substances with basic level interactions with one another and with the human body. The fact that he uses and insists on using complicated terms to describe these things doesn't mean that they're particularly advanced, but it does for teenagers into thinking that they're buying some sort of magical pill when it's nothing magical. These are just natural ingredients. I also want to point out the fact that none of Derek's supplements have been properly scientifically tested, none. He relies on pre-existing studies that only concern the compounds he puts in his products. And until he actually runs clinical trials with his specific supplements, it is going to be very hard to contradict what I just said. It is impossible to use a pre-existing study for one compound and then correlate that to your supplement that actually includes the compound. This is not scientifically sound, and I know Derek knows it, but he still does it because you are none the wiser. So that's for the overall overview of the supplement. Now, let's actually talk about what is in the supplement. I'm not going to go over all of the ingredients, but there is one I want to single out, and that one is Tongkat Ali. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but it's clearly the main compound of the product. It's the one that Derek insists the most on. It's the one that has the most potency in the entire formula of the supplement. And for a very simple reason, it's because it is the most potent in the entire list of test boosting ingredients. Which also begs the question, why in the fuck are the other things included in the first place? Because for the most part, the rest is just for show. If you've ever read like a creatine-based pre-workout or any type of intra-workout and you look at the ingredients, it's usually a list long like my arm. But in reality, there's actually 1 or 2 ingredients that are interesting in the thing and the rest is useless. Most pre-workouts, they have beta-alanine and caffeine. These 2 are the most important. The rest is just for show. Most creatine-based wheys are the same. Most intra-workouts are the same. You have like 1 or 2 golden things and then the rest is just fluff. Derek's supplement is full of fluff. Tongkat Ali is the core of the entire thing. So why the rest? Well, the rest is very simple. It's to create a laundry list that serves to pad the ingredient index. That way it looks longer, it looks more complicated, and you're more likely to buy. Also, he can increase the price. Because let me remind you that Tongkat Ali is cheap. If you actually buy it raw, it's very cheap, and it's in most potent form, it's when it's raw. And if you just buy an extract, it's what, $10? Direct supplement is, I think, $50, $60. How does that compute? The most important ingredient in the thing is $10. So how did it increase to such a high price? Well, because there are the other ingredients, of course. So he has to market them. They have a price tag. But are they even needed? I argue that they are not. Now, let's look again at this Tongkat Ali. It's the most active component in the entire list, so it's the one I want to look at. This is something that has been sold in supplements form for years. I've been finding forms of Tongkat Ali in pill forms dating 2003. So it's nothing new, okay? I want to make that clear because, again, every single time a new supplement comes out by an influencer, they always try to make you think that it's like they went to Mars and they came back with the formula. Bullshit. It's all old stuff. We've known that for a very long time. But because Derek is putting the spotlight on it now, you've been hyped, right? Because, it's Dr. Delve has discovered this root like from ancient Asia. No, he hasn't. It's old fucking news. Tongkat Ali has been used in Thailand, Malaysia, and Vietnam for centuries, okay? And its actual studies and the extraction of the component of Tongkat Ali is something that has been going on for 40, 50 years. So we have been knowing about that for a long time. And for the people who don't know what Tongkat Ali is, it's a form of ginseng. I want to make that clear because when Derek talks about it, you would think that it's like a rare mystical fruit that only grows in one tree. And I'm not saying that he says that. I'm saying that the way he presents it makes it sound like it. And it's very typical with people who sell supplements. They have to make you think that what you buy is rare. Because what is rare is expensive, and what is rare is also hard to come by. So it excites you. It makes you want to get it. You think, I have access to like a new thing that is almost unknown. No, it's not. Okay, millions of people consume Tongkat Ali on a daily basis in their diets. It's nothing revolutionary at all. It's just a tonic herb. Again, it's like ginseng. It's a form of ginseng, and it is part of traditional Asian medicine. And I have a question for you also, because with what I just said, I just told you that Tongkat Ali, the most potent component of the Sigma supplement, is something that has been consumed by Asians for centuries. Let's look at the countries. Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Do people who live in these countries appear particularly jacked to you? Have you ever heard that, people of Thailand are so massive from eating all of that Tongkat Ali? I don't think so. You know why? Because it doesn't do that much. Okay? It's a tonic herb. Adaptogenic herbs do something, absolutely, I'm not going to counter that, but they're not magical and they've never been magical. There are plants that have positive influences, but it's nothing drastic. And if it were, because I could give it to you, maybe it is, if it were, you could just buy the plant directly or buy an extract. If that's the thing that's so potent in the entire formula, just buy this. But of course, it would do nothing. It's the same logic with ecdysterone that comes from spinach and quinoa. If it's so potent, why don't you just eat spinach and quinoa instead? Why do you go for the pill? You go for the pill because it has been overhyped. And instead of calling it a spinach pill, what do they call it? Ecdysterone. Sterone as in steroids. Have you ever made that connection? The fact that the people who sell you that type of supplements take you for idiots, that they think that you're not going to think. The reason why they do it is because you don't think. You're going to buy a bottle with pills called Sigma. That's the proof that you have no brain. That's the reason why I have nothing against Derek. He is playing the game the way it's supposed to be played. He is treating you the way you want to be treated. If you're going to have the lack of intellect necessary to purchase a product called ecdysterone or tocursterone or Sigma, you deserve whatever comes your way. You deserve to be scammed. Again, I'm not saying it's a scam, but based on what I just told you, since the the most important component is, again, just a type of ginseng, do you think that it is that potent? I do believe that it is not. And keep in mind that the vast majority of studies that show an increase in testosterone after consuming those products are dubious at best. Because, again, if it were the case, explain to me why we don't see millions of people walking around jacked. If it boosts your testosterone to this level, why are people in Thailand, for example, not all monsters? Why do they even tend to be slower than the average European, for example, who don't have access to ginseng? These are questions that need to be answered, keeping in mind also that tonic herbs are everywhere in Asia. They're everywhere in regions of Africa, and we have never correlated that with specimens of males that have heightened muscle mass. So why now, when it's extracted and put in a pill, why does it suddenly become magical? Are you going to tell me that it's because it's more potent once extracted? The vast majority of studies show that the raw version of Tongkat Ali is the most effective. So it is something that simply doesn't stand. Now let's look at the numbers claimed by Derek. First off, he claims that the studies that he used, that I read, show a 2 to 6-fold increase in rats. I'm going to take that and dump it in the garbage. Studies on rats have actually no correlation with studies on humans. At best, they're loosely correlated, but it's not something we can use. We need studies on humans. So let's look at the studies on humans that Derek used himself. If we look at his own research, he has seen an increase of 30%, roughly 30%, of free test production in males when they consume Tongkat Ali. That's a ton, okay? It is a lot. And if you combine that with the rest of the supplements that are contained within the Sigma pill, again, according to Derek's numbers, his supplement should increase your testosterone by 50%. I'm not going to do math here. We're not going to go into long equations. I'm not going to even look at the numbers. I'm just going to ask you a simple question. Does that sound realistic? Do you think that a simple pill can boost your testosterone production by 50%? If you answer yes, I answer back that I think you are entirely delusional, because what is supposed to boost the testosterone by 50% is ashwagandha and Tongkat Ali. These two together already reached the 50% mark. So if that's the case, if the supplement is that potent, why don't you just buy these two? Because ashwagandha is cheap as fuck. You could get the two for $20, and that's a supply for months and months. So why do you need to buy the Sigma pill? Again, the logic simply doesn't add up. But I do still ask you the question because it's important that you question your own beliefs. And now, to again go further on the questioning of the logic, let's admit that this is true. Let's admit that these two ingredients by themselves boost the test of a male by 50%, and that the ingredients that are added by Derek do even more. So we can say maybe 60-70%. That's a massive fucking increase. If that's the case, why would anyone bother taking PEDs? If we have had access to these supplements that have massive testosterone boosting properties for 20 years, why do people take PEDs? Why does Derek take PEDs? He just invented something that is the equivalent of a deca cycle. He should just ditch the drugs and take this. It would be much better for his health, right? So why doesn't he do it? And also, if he were to take these supplements, would he see the same increase? If I were to take that pill and give it to a Mr. Olympia, would they see the same 70% increase? Because if that's the case, we're going to see every single every single bodybuilder on earth taking these supplements. And maybe it will happen, I don't know, I cannot read the future. But considering that testosterone boosters have always been a meme, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this one is a meme as well. And I understand that Derek created it because he thought that he was going to come up with something that was going to finally offer naturals with a mean to boost their testosterone, but I think that he came up empty-handed because test boosters have always, again, been bunk, and they're always also pushed by the type of people like Joe Rogan who are, and I say that with all of the respect in the world, lovely idiots. Joe Rogan is a meathead. He barely understands a thing about science. He tends to believe everything that his host or guests say, and at the end of the day, he is someone that has always been pushing that type of bullshit. And I'm not saying he's pushing that supplement in particular, but I'm sure that if you put that bottle in his hand and Derek did his entire spiel with the charisma that we know he possesses, Rogan would buy it. Why? Well, it's very simple. Rogan has always sided with whatever guests he receives. I say that to put into perspective the fact that you could tell me, well, a lot of people are going to side with Derek or they side with Huberman and they believe what they say. Well, yeah, no duh. It's because they're very famous and they also have a lot of followers. Therefore, you don't want to go against them. I do it because I'm fairly suicidal and I don't give a fuck about optics on this platform. But you cannot trust someone like Joe Rogan. You cannot trust someone that is going to go on TRT and then start discussing testosterone optimization with someone. It simply doesn't make any sense. Now, to continue on the Rogan thing, because I think it's important and relevant, because Derek went on the Rogan podcast and he gained a ton of followers from it and a ton of legitimacy as well, because since he appeared on Rogan, people think, oh, he must know what he's talking about. Well, I'm sorry to say that, but Rogan is not the head of a college or university. He cannot give people diplomas in chemistry, and he himself knows close to nothing. Joe Rogan is typically the type of person that will welcome anyone that justifies his lifestyle, meaning that as long as a guest makes him feel better about himself, he loves it. Derek made Rogan feel better about being on TRT and being on GH and all of these drugs he's been taking for years, so he welcomed it. Rogan also welcomed Huberman because Huberman made him feel better about supplements that he thinks are going to make his life better, so he also welcomed it. And that's typical because just like anyone on drugs, these types tend to welcome anyone that makes them feel better about their drug use. So that is the case with Rogan, and the problem is that Rogan is in line, and again, just logically, also someone who has backed up several products that have later been debunked, like for example, deer antler velvet. Do you guys remember that, or did you get memory hold? Do you remember when Rogan was telling everyone that if you bought a spray made of like deer antler velvet and you spread it in your mouth or your nose, it would boost your testosterone by 200%? Or am I the only one? This was a thing. And I'm not saying that Derek backed it, because he didn't, but a lot of people did in the past. And the issue is that this entire deer stuff, it was debunked entirely. It was nonsense. Just like the vast majority of test boosting supplements. They all eventually one day get debunked. And the thing is that Tongkat Ali might never be debunked, but it's mostly because the amount of test boost you can actually hope to receive from it is not major. Now, what I would love to see is an actual study ran on Derek's supplement to see if it actually going to provide you with the 50-60% increase that it promises, but I doubt it because, again, the vast majority of the time, these supplements turn out to be bunk. And everything that is supposedly miraculous for muscle gains also is. It's all hype, right? It's something you see with Joe Rogan. He's someone who hypes things up. It's all hype with him. If you watch him, look at the way he talks about saunas. Look at the way he talks about weed. It's like, or DHT. It's like, it's the portal to another galaxy, but at the end of the day, it's a fucking sauna. You go in it and you sweat. Is it good for your health? Yeah, but it's not magical. Nothing in this wood is magical. And when it's someone like Rogan who does it, it's again mostly because it's projection and it makes him feel better about, again, having been on drugs for 20, 30 years and potentially being dead in the next 10 because his health is completely shot. But for a lot of people, it's also gains. It's financial gains. They do it because they want to put stars in your eyes and then they want to be able to sell you a product that comes with it. And it's incredibly hypocritical when it comes from PD users. This is also a big lapse in logic that I don't understand why most people point out. Derek is on drugs. Doesn't mean that he's stupid, but it does mean that he's trying to sell you something that boosts testosterone when he himself has just given up on that entirely and he's injecting his testosterone. Joe Rogan is the same. Why are you taking advice on testosterone boosting from people who don't boost their testosterone the way they prescribe you to do? They have given up on that. They have replaced their testosterone production with artificial means. You are still natural. They come up with pills and means to boost your test naturally, and you believe them. It's time you start actually questioning things when they don't make sense, because this doesn't make a ton of sense. So it's something that I wanted to point out. I also want to point out something funny, and something that I asked, and I will give the answer now. Since adaptogens are supposedly regulating your free test levels, that means they only really work for people who are natural. Because a PD user wouldn't actually benefit from that because their free test production comes from injections. So again, it's the paradox of Derek, who is someone who, again, injects his testosterone, producing a supplement he himself couldn't actually benefit from. Unless I don't understand the way the product is supposed to work, which is entirely possible. It's just something I wanted to point out. Now, this leads to my next point, and it's the reason why I just went on this entire spiel about Joe Rogan and this entire focus on testosterone boosting. I want you guys to know something. Testosterone is not the end-all be-all. I understand that you've been completely manipulated into thinking it is, but understand one thing. This entire discussion around genetics and around hormonal production was brought forth by PED users. If you go back and you look at the literature, if you go back and you look at exercise science from back in the days, no one spoke about testosterone. Even when it was discovered, right? It's not that they didn't know what it was. Even when they knew what it was, before testosterone and artificial testosterone was produced, no one really cared about that. They understood it had an influence, but it was nothing major. This entire, in a sense, hysteria around testosterone has been brought forth by the type of people who have consumed drugs. And it's the same here. The Joe Rogans, the Dereks. Who are these guys? They're enhanced men. You are, again, letting enhanced men make you feel bad or make you question your testosterone production. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're incorrect in what they say, but it's something that should also make you raise an eyebrow because it's extremely strange. But the problem is that this focus and this hyper-focus on test has led to people, again, buying the type of supplements that are supposed to raise their test, not because they want it, but because they've been told that test is so important, and so they have just fallen for the trap. You have been, in a sense, manipulated into believing that you had a need for the product. It's not just a desire. Right now, you need the product because if you don't have the product, you're not going to have high test, and therefore your life is going to be miserable. This need wasn't there before. It was placed there by the people who sell you these products. I want people to know that your testosterone levels are indeed important, but for the most part, they will increase as your lifestyle changes and not the other way around. Too many people try to increase their test by taking a pill without realizing that the reason why you have low test is because your body is punishing you for having a shit lifestyle. And that is the truth. I've said it in the past. It's the reason why TRT is, for the most part, nonsensical for young adult males. You don't have low T because you're genetically cursed. You have low T because you have the lifestyle of a degenerate. You never work out, you never do anything, and therefore your body is not anabolic. That shouldn't be a surprise. If you check out the video I made about hormonal production boosting, and I recommend you watch it, it's in the description, you will see that I always insist on lifestyle changes first and foremost, and I never even recommend you take products because they are mostly useless. And worse than that, they replace positive lifestyle changes. Let's take the Sigma supplement. Let's look at some of the ingredients. If you look at some of the stuff that's in there, like for example vitamin D, you think it's going to be beneficial, but in reality it's going to take away the incentive to do something that would actually get you the same benefits. For example, take the sun. Instead of going out once in a while and not playing video games 24 hours a day and taking the sun and seeing people and being in nature, no, what do you do instead? You pop a pill and you down it with a fucking pre-workout or like a stimulant drink, and then you go back to your shitty life. And you wonder why you have low T. Even if this is going to improve your T levels, it's not going to improve your life at all. And it's the same with the ashwagandha. Derek pushes it because he says it increases test, no surprise, and because it helps you control your stress. How about controlling your stress without the help of a foreign substance? Because if we're going to just take stuff to feel better about ourselves, just take Prozac, just take Xanax. Your stressors are signs that there are things in your life you're not in control of. You need to control that. Don't dull it. Don't numb it. These are signals. It's incredibly important that you stop relying so much on outside substances. But that Sigma supplement is typically that. It is full of things that might be very beneficial. I'm not denying that, but that could be replaced by simple action on your part. A healthy diet could provide most of the vitamins and minerals, present in the supplement, and the rest, the stuff on the side, is mostly, as I already presented, unnecessary because it's going to boost your test, but your test levels will be boosted tenfold by actually exercising, rejecting modern habits like masturbating to porn or eating junk food or eating sugar or drinking too much coffee, all of which are so much more important because they will have an impact on your overall happiness. I don't want to go too much into details on that because it's not the topic of the video, but keep in mind that focusing on increasing test levels is a typical enhanced mindset, a mindset that, again, was placed there by people who take drugs. Question this again, is it logical? Why did we wait for people who pin test into their butt cheek to start worrying about our testosterone levels? Isn't it projection on their part? And isn't it weird that you're going to buy a test boosting supplement from someone who is himself on drugs? And if you tell me, well, he has high test, so he knows what he's talking about. If he did, I already said it, he wouldn't be on PEDs, he would just take his own supplement. So until he comes off cycle and he just does a cycle of sigma, and he keeps all of his size, he doesn't have the ability to actually give you advice on that. Because, and this is the part where I'm going to start stabbing a bit, even though I have nothing against Derek, but some things need to be said. Derek doesn't give good training advice. And it's also shown by the type of content he makes. If you follow his content, and you watch his videos regularly, tell me, when is the last time you received training tips from Derek? When is the last time you learned something about your training? This is the most important thing for natural lifters. Training is at the center of everything. Diet and test boosting, all of that is accessory. And in reality, most of it will happen via training. The best test booster on earth is a good training program. But that type of information is not on Derek's channel. Why? It's not his thing. That's not what he's concerned with. But if you're a natural lifter, you should be concerned with that. Instead of watching dozens of videos about PDUs or about like the most efficacious dose of caffeine to put in your bowl to be able to get that result, all of that is mostly useless to you. And the problem is that Huberman, who is supposed to be Derek's associate for this project, is not better. One, he doesn't look like he lifts. And two, even after trying really hard to find a picture of his physique, I couldn't find one. There's not a single picture of the guy shirtless on the internet. It's not that I had like an urge to look at the guy's nipples. It's just that when someone gives you advice on how to boost your test and how to get bigger, you sort of expect them to be that. The only type of footage I found of the guy was a footage of him training at Super Training's gym, and he benched one plate. Are you going to let that guy tell you how to boost your test? Really? Also, there's a video of him where he talks about a cold plunge, but he doesn't demonstrate. He just stands by the thing. Just why doesn't he do it? Just get in the cold water. I'm not saying that he's ashamed of his body. I'm just saying I've never seen his body. And that's a problem because we're going to get to that. The supplements that you're buying from these people, so the Sigma supplement they come up with, you are going to take because you think it's going to make you more muscular, and that is the truth. But before we do that, one last jab. I have a question to ask for the people who are going to actually buy the product or tell me that my arguments don't make sense. Derek, it's not a question actually, it's an affirmation. Derek needed PEDs to achieve a good body, meaning that before he started taking drugs, he looked like shit, and it's something that he himself admitted. What makes you think his supplements will help you as a natural lifter to get bigger? Because again, if he could have gotten a good physique without the drugs, he would have done it, but he couldn't. So unless you're taking drugs yourself, what use do you have of this entire mass of information? What use do you have of a supplement that is supposedly going to boost your test? For the most part, nothing. But let's get into the physique, because I've always found it strange how these supplements always tend to be sold under the cover of health, which is entirely bullshit. I think that I've proven that at this point. People buy that type of supplement to gain muscle. And that's, by the way, the reason why Derek insists so much on the free test increase, because it resembles very eerily the entire TRT pitch. The thing is pushed on you because it's supposed to make you feel better. So it's supposed to lighten your mood, it's supposed to make you more balanced, to reduce your stress, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, we all know that people who jump on it do it to look jacked. People who take TRT don't do it so as to not be depressed anymore. They do it because they want big muscles. They just won't admit that, because if you admit that you did it for muscles, now you can't recall and say it's for health anymore. You have to admit that you did it simply because you wanted the results that a PD cycle would give you without the stigma attached. It's the exact same thing here. I don't buy for a second that people are going to buy a pill called Sigma simply to feel better. They're going to do it because they know they're going to get benefits from it, and Derek is no shy in telling you that you will, because when someone tells you you're going to have an increase of 60% in free testosterone, what are they telling you? They're telling you, hey, if you buy my supplement, you will get jacked. That is the real selling pitch of the Sigma supplement. And I have the best proof in the world for that. Tongkat Ali also has strong anti-proliferative properties that protect from all sorts of cancer. And actually, there are studies dating 20, 30 years on Tongkat Ali that are much more conducive to the conclusion that it indeed does protect against all forms of cancer. And there are dozens of these studies, and they are very reputable. Why didn't Derek mention that? If the product is supposed to make you feel better, and all that free test boost is just for mood and just to make you a better male, a healthier male, why didn't he mention the best property of the supplement? Well, I believe that it is because it is not truly the main focus of his pills. It is not the real gist. The real gist is something that is supposed, again, to make you feel jacked with no effort on your part. And this fascination, by the way, with the magic pill is the very reason why people have shit physiques and never take control of their health. You are constantly looking for a quick fix that always takes the form of an external factor. You're always looking for a solution to your problems outside of you. YouTubers and influencers have perfectly understood that, and therefore they have started to provide that solution against your cash, in exchange for your cash. Supplement companies, in particular, bank on the fact that you're too lazy to put in efforts and would rather spend your cash. I can tell you for a fact one thing. All of your powders, all of those pills, that Sigma supplement, all of that, regardless of what the science says, pales in the face of training, pales in the face of discipline. It will never match the results you will get if you actually train. But a large portion of the people who watch Derek or who are going to buy this product never train, and therefore they simply fall for the nonsensical purchase of products like this because it replaces the hard work that they are unwilling to put in. And sadly, their purchasing and consumption of said products triggers what is known as action faking. It's the psychology of purchases I was talking about at the start of the video, which also explains again why companies and supplement companies and people like Derek are able to sell so many units of their products. It's because when you purchase something, there is a mechanism in your brain that triggers, and it's very similar to compulsive spending in a sense. The action of buying a supplement, for example, in this case, convinces you that you are moving towards your goals because you have spent resources, you have expended efforts to purchase something, and then you take it. It's part of a ritual. So you think, man, I'm doing better. It sounds dumb at first, but understand that there are millions of people who fall for that. Just like with compulsive spending, it's people who associate the act of purchasing something with happiness. And it's not just psychological, it's also biological. It has been reported that these people actually do feel a rush of endorphin in their brain when they spend money. But you know who really likes that? You know who really benefits from that? Companies. People who sell you shit. If they can have you have a rush of pleasure hormones every time you empty your wallets into their pockets, that's a fucking dream. It's the same with supplements companies. You're going to buy that Sigma pill and you're going to receive it and you're going to think, man, I did such a great thing for myself because Derek told me that it's going to do so much for me and it's going to boost my test. So me doing this is already an effort. It's already something I did towards my goals. And I'm there to remind you that this is bullshit. It's a psychological trick. You did absolutely nothing. Whatever benefit you're going to get from taking that pill is almost immeasurable. It's extremely small. And if you don't actually put in the work, you're never going to get where you want to get. The supplement industry absolutely knows this. I've already made an hour-long video on the topic. They are perfectly conscious of this, and it's the reason why they've always sold their products the same way. They overhype the results, they promise you miraculous properties, and then they also engineer a satisfaction aspect to you purchasing the product, which also is, in a sense, a way to ensure you're going to come back and buy it again, etc., etc. And while Derek does educate people on the products he sells and does tell people to try other means first, he's talking to teenagers, meaning that it's very nice to say, oh, don't buy my pill right now, do other things instead, don't jump on TRT, try to fix yourself. But when you're talking to these types of people, it's not going to work because they always take the easy way out. And it's something that I can prove to you. You just have to go into the comments of the video I am referencing in this segment and look at the comments. You will see a ton of Zoomers with low testosterone that are going to express how happy they are about the release of Sigma and how they're going to buy it. These are kids ranging from 15 to 19 who have low T. Do you think that they have low T because they are genetically fucked? Or do you think maybe they have low T because they have been living like worms and slugs for their entire teenagehood? They never actually trained beyond just 2 hours of PEs where they just look at the girl's ass and masturbate. At what point do we just take these people by the shoulders and say, hey, Dylan, or whatever fuckboy name you have, you don't have low T because it was in the cards for you. You have low T because you are a degenerate. It's your life that led to your low T. It's not your ancestors that gave you that, right? Your great-grandpa had balls the size of my fist. He was fighting bears with his bare hands. He had a testosterone production of 50 modern males. You are the result of this modern age. And it's not a pill that is going to fix that. I can guarantee you this. But it's not something that surprises me because I already made a segment on Liver King, and it deeply saddens me to say it, but Derek has the same business practices as Liver King. He tells you, hey, you don't really need my products, but if you want to, here it is, here is the link, and you can buy it here. Knowing full well that people are just going to buy it because the other option is to put in efforts. Liver King has all of his tenets saying, oh, you have to go outside and connect with people and exercise and do this, and all of that is going to restore the male in you. Or you could buy my supplements. Or you have to go outside and eat all of this organ meat and cook it this way or not cook it at all and eat it raw. Or you can take a supplement. What are people going to do? What are teenagers going to do? They're going to take the supplement because the supplement is convenient and it's easy. That's the reason why powders and pills exist. And Derek did the exact same thing with his Sigma supplement. Telling people to not buy it and do their research first or do other things first doesn't work because you are talking to major lazy bones that are just going to, because they trust you blindly, buy the product outright. And that's normies, by the way. And people who don't even lift, which is the vast majority of Derek's audience. It's normal, he's a big page, but it is paradoxical that people who haven't even put in two years of serious training would consider buying something that is supposed to boost your test. Again, c'est mettre la charrue avant les bœufs. It's going too fast. Test boosters should be reserved to people who have already achieved a very high level in natural bodybuilding. People like me, but people like me are also the type that would never take that type of products. Isn't that strange? Shouldn't that be a red flag? That people with a ton of muscle would just immediately understand that this is bullshit and the only people who fall for it are normies. It's a sign, and that sign is the sign that the vast majority of them have average, if not below average physiques, and therefore, since they don't understand anything about lifting, they're also the type that are going to fall for that type of marketing pitches. And the worst part is that these types need to focus on training instead and leave the pills alone, but because they over-obsess on the pills, they'll never train, and therefore they will stay skinny fat forever. On top of the study about Derek's pills, I would be extremely interested in a study about his subscribers. You randomize and you take 1,000 of them, and in 2 years you come back and you look at their physiques. I would put money on the fact that 95% of them would either not have changed at all or regressed, and the 5 remaining percent would either be enhanced or they would have made some small incremental improvements. Why? Because testosterone boosting culture and supplements culture produces mediocre physiques every single time, because they target people with mediocre attitudes every single time. And that's the same with EGD and testosterone, by the way. If you're the type that fell for that meme and bought that stuff, I'm sorry to say it, you're weak-minded, and you're most likely not going to go very far. I know I've seen all of the comments and the posts about, oh, I put 20 pounds on my bench. Yeah, you went from 130 to 150. That doesn't impress me. All of these supplements are in the same line as what I just described today with the Tongkat Ali. They come from things that have been studied and we know about and we've known about for decades. They are taken out of the bag by someone like Derek, who people trust, and then pushed to the forefront and presented as something new, and people fall for it. And the people who fall for it are mostly novices who will see results because, of course, they're novices, and then they will sing the product's praises. I guarantee you that in 2-3 months, you're going to see a ton of people that are going to tell you, oh, Sigma by Derek is the greatest supplement on earth, and it changed my life, and I gained 50 pounds of muscles. Why? Because they're novices, and they could have drank water and did calisthenics, and they would have gotten the same results. But that is what triggers massive organic viral campaigns that Derek is incredibly good at actually starting and manipulating to his own benefit, because your own customers are, in a sense, creating publicity for your product. It is the best of the best. And because teenagers are conformists, if they hear another teenager or someone else say that the product works, they're going to go for it, because social proof is extremely important in the business of selling supplements. Everything I'm saying right now, by the way, Derek and Huberman understand better than I do, because they're both genius marketers. I'm just exposing it because I want you to understand the mechanisms that push you towards purchasing these products. And we're going to end with a little bit of, again, a conclusion and a message to people who like Derek and who might have stumbled upon the video. You might have discovered exercise and healthy living with Derek. And if that's the case, I suggest you take his advice for real and try to improve yourself first before buying any supplements. And you will find that if you actually do it, you will not need the supplement anymore. Taking powders to make up for your shitty lifestyle is the equivalent of someone taking tons of PEDs, then swallowing liver protection capsules thinking it's going to prevent cancer or a potential heart attack down the line. It simply doesn't. So don't fall for that meme, please. And as a wrap-up, we're going to quickly touch again on the topic of father figures, because I think that Derek understands perfectly that masculinity is in crisis, and that this crisis is linked to the way we feel about ourselves. And I see that a lot on his channel and the comments that he receives, where people tell him that they receive guidance from him and they feel better, etc. All of that is nice and all, but the issue is that it's mainly linked to your hormonal profile. And by promising to boost your hormonal profile, what Derek really is doing is that he offers to recover your masculinity. And Huberman is the exact same. As I said, they speak to men, and they speak to men who don't really know where they stand. They don't feel good about themselves, they feel like they have no role, etc. So they are looking for a solution. But the problem is that once you look for that solution, you're going to be faced with people, again, motivational speakers or alpha males, that are going to come up with new problems for you that you didn't even know you have, so that they can offer a solution after that. And while some of them make sense, some of the questions and potential problems that these individuals are going to raise do make sense, others also clearly exist solely to create concerns that they can then ease with a product they are going to sell you. And that is sort of looping and linking everything back together. If you think about what I described in this video, what is that concern I'm talking about? It's your testosterone level. The reason why testosterone levels were pushed to the forefront is because it creates anxiety, and that anxiety can be eased with testosterone boosting supplements. So everything connects, everything makes sense. You might be someone who is desperately in need of a fix, but who is looking for that fix in the hands of the people who have incepted that problem in your head in the first place. And I'm not saying that Derek or Huberman are the reason why masculinity are in crisis, but I also think that they are certainly not helping as much as they think. TRT is not going to replace a serious training regimen. The reason why we have low hormonal profiles nowadays is because of the environment, and doing injections doesn't change the environment. I'm not going into too much detail for this because I can already sense myself ranting, but I just wanted to make sure I included that. So as again, to make sure that you understand that I don't think that these two people are bad people. I'm just saying that their marketing tactics are. Because if this goes unchallenged and I don't make this video and no one actually points out all of the problems with the Sigma supplement, what's next? If we're going to look at what happened with the supplement here, Derek took 1 or 2 roots or herbs and he made something out of it. But there are tens of dozens of things that could be used as well. Like for example, allicin from garlic. That's very potent as well. What about gingerol from ginger? What about capsaicin from pepper? You could extract these things and make supplements as well. So are we going to see an entire line of supplements based on this? I mean, it might be something they already have in their heads. They associate it together to sell a supplement and make money. So guys, if you want new ideas, go ahead. I just gave you some. But I want people to know, for the people who are going to actually take the time to listen to me and who got to that stage of the video, that regardless of what is being put in your supplement, regardless of the names and the science backing it up and the people selling it to you, at the end of the day, it's mostly going to be overhyped bullshit, overpriced, and not something that is going to actually make a direct change in your life because it's an external factor. If you want to change, you have to change from the inside, and no amount of powders or supplements is going to help. This concludes my review and overall critique of the Sigma supplement by Derek from More Plates, More Dates. I hope this was informative. I hope that it wasn't too long or that I didn't meander too much, and I will see you next time.